Hello everyone, Alex here again with another image review session. This is the third week of February in 2023, and like the previous two installments of this, it's more pictures as I slowly work through pictures that I've taken recently in Raja Ampat in December and the Cayman Islands in January. So that's what we'll sort of have a look at today. As always, I'll sort of try and pass on any comments on why I've processed the pictures, what I like about them, what could have been better about them, and any sort of technical things photographically. Also, I will leave up on the right hand side of the screen there the EXIF information, as much as we'll sort of show naturally like this, so you can see that as well. But most of these pictures will be fairly soon on my website, where you can also interrogate them for the EXIF information by going on there and finding the images using the search function of that particular image. So for this one here, you'd obviously search for the batfish or spadefish, and that would bring those up, and then you could find this particular picture and check for the EXIF. Right, so let's get going with these pictures from Raja. There's batfish first. Just a nice formation, a small little school of batfish here. I think what drew me to want to process this picture was the background, actually. I like the fact that you've got a nice formation of batfish, obviously, but there's this sort of sweeping school of fusiliers behind that I think create just a very nice background for makes a fairly standard schooling shot into really quite a nice image. Not an absolutely perfect formation of batfish, but nice enough. Lots of good eye contact from the group. Pardon me. The next images are all coral bleaching related ones. During this season in Indonesia, really across all of Indonesia, there's been a sort of a warm water event caused by La Nina, and Raja Ampat is usually considered an area that doesn't get coral bleaching. It's often not sunny enough there, and the water, although it gets very warm, tends to be doesn't get super warm. I think there's a lot of tidal mixing of deeper water because of the strong currents, and that tends to stop the water getting super hot there and causing bleaching. But this year with the La Nina event, it did cause bleaching. Hopefully most of it wasn't lethal, just some quite extensive bleaching on corals and anemones, but nothing that's probably killed them. I think most of the corals, some of the shallow water acropora had died, but most of the colonies were still alive, and I think that will probably regrow fairly quickly. And this is very much related to a one-off event at the moment. But obviously that is, La Ninas didn't used to cause coral bleaching. They cause coral bleaching because the oceans as a whole are warming up. So I don't want to make light of it. But I think generally in this case, it was a bleaching event. So this is a big Porites colony. Big boulder colony. These are very old. I think people often divers often go, "Oh, coral, gosh, it's really, really old. You must be, super careful around it." And that's a really good message. But corals aren't always that old. A lot of corals do grow very fast, in relative terms. But these big Porites blocks are some of the older live ones. These kind of more massive, blocky blocks really take a long time to grow to this sort of size. And this one is quite extensively bleached. I quite like that. If you zoom in, you can see these the bright colours of the Christmas tree worms on the Porites there, sort of give a contrast to it. But as you can see, the reef as a whole, there is some bleached coral around. You can see some bleached colonies in the background, but it's not actually that much hard coral. So I zoomed in the wrong place. There's not actually that much hard coral on this reef. Some of the soft corals, the leather corals, and the digitate leather corals are bleached, but it was mainly this main Porites block, so it wasn't absolute widespread bleaching. This is another shallow water shot of a big table coral, but you can see some of the other acroporas around it aren't bleached, or they are bleaching and showing they're not bleaching white, they're bleaching and showing their other pigments. And these are thought that the corals actually show these strong colours when stressed, because these other pigments help protect them from being protect them during a bleaching event. So that's why you often get these very strong pastel colours on corals during bleaching events. I guess the key to these shots was actually I waited till it wasn't too sunny to go out and photograph these. I found when it was really sunny, it was quite hard to show the white corals, and it was actually better when the clouds came over to go out and shoot these shots. So both these two shots, you can see I've swum and photographed these table corals in cloudy weather, and I think that really helped deal with the whites. These next bleaching shots are bleached anemones. This is a bubble tip anemone with a spine cheek anemone fish in. This type of anemone fish lives in these types of anemones. So so nice to get that relationship. And these anemones are usually, you know, sort of dark green, browny color with rings on the tips, but obviously all bleached white because of the warm water. Shows the fish off, you know, very strongly in the color. And I think having the fish in the picture is very important, because obviously if you just show a white anemone in a photograph, it can just look like you've got a photo of an anemone in black and white or something. So I think having the color in bleaching shots is a really important way of making the pictures work. These are some clownfish in a magnificent sea anemone. Here, the same anemone, just different parts of it. So it wasn't, well, no. So that was just some bleaching shots. Sort of for me, important to take. Always good to have. I think bleaching is quite hard to tell that story in a single still image. It works better in a before and after image, as a lot of sort of environmental shots can often do, and particularly in like a sequence in a video, I think it works best. I think it was Blue Planet 2 has absolutely fantastic coral bleaching sequence in it, showing a reef before, during bleaching, and after, sort of, and shot and edited together in a way that allows it to feel both like an interesting panning shot and a time lapse, which I think is the most wonderful way to show it. Right. Back into the shallows now for some more split level shots around Missoul Island. This was a great time to do these shots because the corals were on the edge of bleaching. They were quite bright, but it also meant those strong fluorescent pigments were showing up. So this pink fluorescent in this Pacillopora coral, the coral in the middle here, surrounded by the Acroporas, that's showing that nice colour. Then I just like the shape of these sort of ramparts of I think it's a fire coral in the shallows here, Meliopora, and the island behind. I'm very close by actually, just working around the edge of the island. So this is on Bat-Batim Island, which is the resort island of Missoul Resort, and this is just swimming round from the jetty round towards South Beach, and there's a very nice shallow coral garden there, which is well placed for doing split levels with the island, which is where these shots are taken. This is just a completely underwater shot, just because it was very calm, so very nice reflections. Nice to work those into the images. This is actually, I think, close to the jetty, rather than at the end of the island. And then now down onto the reef, some wide angle, classic sort of reef wide angle shots. I think this is probably it's either at Boo West or it's at Nudie Rock, and those trees being the antlers of Nudie. I can't remember which dive site this is on, but one of those two islands in the Boophia-Barchet chain. Here with this Gorgonian and some soft corals, soft corals in front of the island. And I very much sort of spotted that island was a great background and was working, you know, with the sunbeams coming through the trees a little bit, and then was just working, looking for foregrounds in front of it. Nothing super spectacular going on, but nice to have it. And this might be the same dive, might be the same island. I'm not really sure. I don't remember. But exactly the same thought process of having spotted that background. It was a case of finding foreground subjects that I could shoot with this particular background. I'm just going to zoom in and see if that's that Gorgonian in the other picture. I think that's a green chibastria. I'm not sure. It's unusual to have a green chibastria that shallow. Anyway, but the thought process is what I wanted to sort of talk about with these, is that it's about marrying up those foregrounds and backgrounds. And I think it must be the same dive. I think this is the same trees again, but this time using a school of these convict blennies as a foreground. So actually, Nadia got a nice photo of me taking this. I was just diving in my shorts and rash vest because it was so warm, and I don't look particularly elegant as I was floating on my sort of feet up in the air photographing these. Obviously, because I wanted to get down close to the reef. Without obviously touching the reef, so I was in quite a funny position to get this shot. But yeah, that's the nice thing about being underwater photographer. You can move in 3 dimensions. Right, there's quite a lot of pictures this week, so I'm going to speed on through some. So a green chibastria. This coral is very beautiful underwater, but very hard to photograph because it's such a dark color, and it doesn't take the light well. But this and usually if it turns strobes up so bright, it fries everything around it, and that's why I've sort of just focused in on this particular coral. Excuse me. Next picture, sort of another simple frame filling, close focus, wide angle shot of just this bunch of Dendronepthia red soft corals with the sunbeams coming in behind. This was taken on an afternoon dive, probably at Nudie Rock, actually, looking at it. Looks like that sort of area. This picture here is at Calig, which are the islands that are sort of across the kind of, if Bufir Barchet continues, they become Calig as a ridge. So it's that ridge, one ridge in from the island, the edge islands of South Missoul. And Calig's got nice coral gardens. Sometimes liverboards anchor in these bays as well. The coral in there isn't amazing, but the islands are very pretty, so it's a nice place to try some split levels. And this was just taken on a surface interval between dives, where we just whizzed in there, did a couple of shots. I think I got the whole group to jump in. There's probably some heads bobbing around somewhere in this picture of other photographers. And we just swam up and down and just worked this little island as a background, just shooting the coral. It's not got particularly nice coral, this island, but it is a nice size of island to use in the background of a split level shot on a nice day. This is another split level image, but this is back on Missoul Resorts, back to Tim Island here, and this is just taken on the way swimming north from the jetty on the edge of the drop off there, and there's a little sort of crest of island that makes quite a nice background, particularly in a vertical composition. This is another shot on Tim Island. This is actually taken with those strobes, those prototype strobes I was talking about the other time, which are a lower spec strobe than I'd normally shoot with. But still very nice, and this is a shot taken with those, so that's why I processed this one out, just of these glassfish swimming over the soft corals. This is a macro shot taken with those strobes. I'm not very happy with the left-hand side of this picture being out of focus. I think I probably prefer this one cropped, actually, a little bit more, because I think it works well where it's all in focus, and for me that left-hand side is a bit poor, really. I don't think we should have that in the picture. So yeah, I think that one probably needs a crop away that blurry bit. But these are all shots taken with those experimental, those prototype flashes. Just a little ghost goby sitting on a leather coral. And these are the 6 bars or 5 bars of a 6-bar angelfish. One of the common reef angelfishes around there. This one was very friendly, so it enabled me to get some pattern and detail shots. You can just see the base of the tail here on the right hand side of the frame. Another bleached coral shot. This is the underside, I think, of a leather coral. It looks like a leather coral. So Sargophytum leather coral with the striated triple fin on it, which I think, again, like those anemone fish shots, it's great to show the bleaching, but I think you need the normal colours in the pictures as well. Otherwise, it could just be a massively overexposed piece of coral, or it could be a desaturated piece of coral. So I think the blue water and the red fish provide quite a nice contrast for the bleaching on this one. But not a particularly interesting picture without that bleaching story. Some more batfish in a school. I think this is actually on the same dive site as the other one, but just on a different day. Same group of batfish. Nice formation. I think the other one is a more interesting shot with the fusiliers really filling the background, or the anchovies, whatever they are, behind them, behind these longfin batfish. They got that black spot on them, which is how you sort of the differentiator between the longfin batfish and the sort of more normal circular batfish. Just a nice sort of reef wide angle shot, very sort of uninteresting shot, really, of just a subject with some fish behind and the sun, but I think made a bit more interesting because it's got that hero fish of this nice male emperor angelfish in the picture. And I do like how the emperor angelfish in Asia have this pointed dorsal fin. In the Red Sea, it's always round. Or in the Indian Ocean, it's always round. But in Asia, they get that point on their dorsal fin, which I really like. I think the other thing I quite like about this picture is this sponge is covered in these hawkfish, little pixie hawkfish. There's one there, and there's another couple over here, poking out, and there's another one there. I think there's another one here. There's about 6 or 7 on there, which is quite nice. It's reflection of the fact this was a bit of a grab shot. When you see something and you take one shot of it and that's it, you often get all this sort of extra stuff in the picture. Whereas if you hang around there and get your lighting perfect and get the composition a bit more interesting, often a lot of that smaller life kind of retreats away from the front of the sponge. And so you don't get it in the picture. So in many ways, I quite like that. This is a bit of a grab shot, but it's got bonuses because of it. This is a kind of another sort of grab shot as going past a bit of reef with this barramundi in the picture, which is one of the larger groupers. And I think it's very nice to get these into the shots in Raja Ampat, because one of the things that the protections that they've put in place, particularly in the Misul Marine Protected Area, is that lack of fishing allows fish like this, which are normally quite rare on coral reefs, simply because once you fish them away, they take a long time to come back. That these fish are there and they're part of the scenery. And so it's really good to be able to work them into the picture. It's not the world's nicest shot without the barramundi, but I'm happy to process this one out because I think it's got a good message to it. Right, some more bleach coral shots. This is some shallow water cropper that's just bleaching on the tips. It's gone very white on the tips, but actually, if you look behind it up here, the coral at the back of the picture is actually died from the bleaching event, and actually is now starting to get algae growing on it. But I think that will recover pretty. I mean, that's dead, but I think those bits will break off and new coral will grow up there. These branching shallow water croppers are very fast growing. They'll grow 10 centimeters in a year in ideal conditions, and certainly Raja Ampat has very ideal conditions. Some bleached Sinularia, so this is digitate leather corals, that kind of soft wavy stuff, very very common on the reef edges in Raja Ampat, both this and the more kind of flower shaped big leather corals, but these are bleached out. You can see here, it's just the reef will drop off with some bleached Sinularia, some bleached Acroporas on the edge of the reef wall there. And then some correctly coloured Acropora that's not bleached, here with a nice gang of these small silver demoiselles, these small sort of silver chromis with the black tips, which I always struggle to identify. I always think they're Philippines chromis, but I can never remember. Anyway, right. This fish caught my eye during the trip. It's a juvenile two-tone wrasse, and underwater I thought, because it looks very similar to a fang blenny, and it swam at this age very similar to a fang blenny. I took this picture of it, not really knowing what it was, but suspecting it was a fang blenny. And then when I downloaded it, I was like, oh no, that looks like a wrasse to me. But there aren't many good photos of juvenile wrasses in the ID books, so it took a bit of a while to work out what it was. And it was actually photographing another individual that was sort of much more on its way to going into adult colours, where the adult is blue at the front and yellow at the tail, that I was able to figure out what I'd photographed, and that it was a two-tone wrasse. Some coral fluorescent shots. This is a long exposure shot. So I think it was a 1.5 second exposure to get the lights of the resort to burn into the background of this. So it's not a double exposure or anything. This is just a single shot with this as an Isopora coral and then some Acroporas behind. A small table coral, giving really nice colours in the fluorescence. A lot of the other corals around it were just green, but this one had some nice orange in it, which was good. And this picture here, where I think that the only fluorescent coral in this really was the other one, and it's more that the blue light from the strobe with the filtering has ended up going a bit purpley in this, which is why there's kind of this purpley colour. I don't think it's a fluorescent colour. I think it's a reflected colour from the light leakage of my strobes. But nice. I like to get these fluorescent shots which aren't just greenwash, that have as many different colours in as possible. So any coral that gives a slightly different fluorescent response is always interesting to me, and those are the ones I tend to work, rather than the ones that simply just grow bright green. It's often the ones that grow less brightly that are worth putting your attention on. Right, I've only done the Raja Ampat. I'm already at 20 minutes. Oh no, maybe I should stop this and do it in 2 parts. Right, this is one of the final ones from Raja Ampat. This was a nice school of silversides that were being chased by jacks and were thronging along the reef top at one of the dive sites on Calig. And you can just kind of a very standard Raja Ampat top of the reef scene with the Sinularia, with some of the shallow waters, a big brain coral behind them, and then just this mass of fish. We didn't have a lot of, I think probably to do with the La Nina event. Sorry. There wasn't as many bait fish as you would normally expect on a November into December trip in Raja and Misul, when you'd normally expect there to be a lot of bait fish in the water. And this was one of the one of the better opportunities for shooting them during the trip. Not in the most amazing scenery, but always great to get these wide angle shots with so much life in the frame. This is actually the villa that I was sharing with Callum and Julie, Professor Callum Roberts and Dr. Julie Hawkins during the workshop. So this was just our home, and actually Julie and Callum I think are both in this picture. If I zoom in, it's not so. There's Julie reading a book, and Callum's over here somewhere. There he is, working on his computer. But just nice with all this Heliopora coral in the shallows. There's amazing how sensitively the whole resort's been built, and all this life is just there. Right, I'm definitely going to finish this with just the Raja Ampat ones because it's way too long. This is at Whale Rock. I recognise where this is. Underneath the overhangs there in very shallow water, there's really nice coral and gorgonian growth. And I was just up there shooting, and that's Tom Baker in the background, who happened just to be swimming past. So I used him as a model of opportunity to complete this composition. Some batfish here, just coming over this big Anella sea fan. These are also longfin batfish with that black spot on their sides. And yeah, I was hoping this whole school would come over to me, because the school was hanging out about 5 meters behind the sea fan, and I crept up to the sea fan and was hoping the batfish might come towards me in the current, but they stayed back there. But these two came and checked me out, so I was able to get a picture of them. But I was kind of hoping for the whole school to come around this sea fan, but it didn't pan out. And then finally, just some Elicella red wire coral surrounded by these. Is it Juncella or I'm not sure what the other steep wire corals are in this one. I think it's Juncella. Good old wire coral ID is not that great. But yeah, I really like this red wire coral here. Just a sort of simple little picture, but I think the composition of this one reminds me a little bit of fireworks, so I quite like that look of it. But I didn't shoot it with a fast shutter speed just to have it as a kind of a fireworky shot. I wanted it still to have a natural feel, so it's obviously a classic wide angle shot with an exposure to let the blue light come in, because I had this nice outcrop of the island at the top of the frame. And I'll just do this Philippine shot to finish on, and we'll come back and look at the Cayman shots in another video. This is just a square spot Anthias. I was actually looking. I launched a Blackwater trip this week, and I was just trying to dig out some Blackwater photos from the Philippines specifically to launch the trip with. And when I was looking through the catalogue, I bumped into this square spot Anthias, so I thought I'd process that out, because it was the work of a second to process it out. So there he is to finish. I hope you enjoyed that run through, and I'll probably tomorrow post the other half of this video, which is the Cayman pictures. But thank you for watching, and obviously if you bash some comments in below, I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, bye.